Imagine England, the year 1066, a time of great change. A land of mist-shrouded forests and fertile valleys, rich and bountiful, ruled by a king nearing his end, his days numbered. Edward the Confessor, a man of deep piety, his reign marked by relative peace and prosperity. Yet beneath the surface, ambition simmers and grows. Powerful lords, their eyes on the throne, wait for the inevitable power vacuum to occur. A storm is brewing, one that will forever alter the fate of England. Life for the common folk was harsh, their destinies tied to the land they toiled. Villages dotted the countryside, their wooden houses huddled around the imposing stone presence of the local lord's manor. Religion played a central role, the church a dominant force in everyday life and community. Unbeknownst to them, across the narrow channel, a formidable force was gathering. The year began with a death that sent shockwaves through the kingdom, reverberating through every village and town. Edward the Confessor, the devout aging king, breathed his last, leaving behind a legacy of piety and devotion. With his passing, the carefully constructed facade of stability crumbled, plunging England into a maelstrom of conflicting claims and ambitions, each more desperate than the last. The throne lay vacant, a prize ripe for the taking, a symbol of power and authority that many coveted. Edward, childless and nearing the end, had supposedly promised the crown to his cousin, William, Duke of Normandy, a promise that would ignite a fierce struggle. However, this claim was tenuous at best, whispered in the confines of the king's chamber and disputed by many, casting a shadow of doubt over its legitimacy. Among the contenders, one figure stood out, Harold Godwinson, the Earl of Wessex, a man of great influence and ambition. Powerful, ambitious, and a skilled warrior, Harold was the brother-in-law of the deceased king and a force to be reckoned with, his claim bolstered by his familial ties. With the backing of the Witan, who saw in him a strong leader capable of uniting a fractured kingdom, Harold seized the throne, his resolve unwavering. The coronation was swift, a move calculated to solidify Harold's position and deter any immediate challengers. Across the channel, William, upon hearing the news, was enraged, his ambitions thwarted by Harold's swift actions. He vowed revenge, swearing to cross the sea and take by force what he believed was rightfully his, setting the stage for a monumental clash. William the Bastard, as he was known, was no ordinary claimant. Born out of wedlock, he had fought tooth and nail to secure his Duchy of Normandy and mold it into a formidable power. He was a ruthless leader, a skilled strategist, and a man accustomed to getting what he wanted. He saw England, rich and ripe for the taking, as his birthright, and Harold Godwinson as a usurper. The news of Harold's coronation reached William in his court, igniting a firestorm of anger. He immediately began to rally support, calling upon his Norman barons, and even garnering the blessing of the Pope. Ships had to be built, supplies gathered, and men mobilized. Throughout the summer of 1066, Normandy hummed with activity as William rallied his forces. Mercenaries and adventurers from across France flocked to his banner, eager to share in the spoils of war. As summer turned to autumn, the Norman fleet, a formidable force of hundreds of ships, assembled at the mouth of the River Dives. While William gathered his forces across the channel, Harold Godwinson faced a dilemma. To the north, the Viking king Harald Hardrada, sensing an opportunity, had landed with a vast army. Harold, forced to divide his forces, marched north to confront this immediate threat, leaving the south vulnerable. The Battle of Stamford Bridge, fought on September 25, 1066, was a resounding victory for Harold Godwinson. He completely routed the Viking invaders, killing both Harald Hardrada and Tostig, Harold's own rebellious brother. Even as Harold celebrated his triumph in the north, William's fleet set sail, taking advantage of favorable winds. The Normans landed unopposed at Pevensey Bay on the southern coast of England and quickly began to consolidate their position. The stage was set for one of the most pivotal battles in English history, the Battle of Hastings. The two armies clashed on a hilltop near Hastings, a site that would forever be etched in English memory. The date was October 14, 1066, a day that would decide the fate of a nation. Harold's army, though exhausted from their forced march, held the high ground, their shields interlocked, forming a formidable wall of resistance. The battle began with a shower of Norman arrows, but the English lines held firm. Then, the Norman infantry advanced, uphill against the shield wall, a brutal close-quarters struggle. The Anglo-Saxons, armed with axes, swords, and their renowned battle axes, fought with the ferocity of cornered wolves. The Normans, clad in chainmail and armed with swords and lances, were relentless. They employed a new tactic, feigning retreat, to try and break the English lines. The battle raged throughout the day, a brutal back-and-forth struggle. As the sun began to set, Casting long shadows across the bloody battlefield, a single fateful event turned the tide of the battle. The air was thick with the scent of blood, and the cries of the wounded echoed through the dusk. Harold Godwinson, the last hope of the Anglo-Saxons, fell. His fall marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter in English history. Struck in the eye by a Norman arrow, according to legend, he died amidst his household guard, his claim to the throne extinguished with his last breath. The sight of their fallen king struck fear into the hearts of his men. With Harold's death, the English resistance crumbled. The once formidable Anglo-Saxon army began to falter and lose hope. Leaderless and demoralized, they were cut down or put to flight by the relentless Norman advance. The Normans showed no mercy as they pursued the fleeing soldiers. The Battle of Hastings was over, a decisive victory for William, the bastard of Normandy. His strategic brilliance and unyielding determination had won the day. He had crossed the sea, challenged the English for their crown, and emerged victorious. His journey had been fraught with peril, but his resolve never wavered. The consequences of this battle were monumental. The landscape of power in England was forever altered. The Anglo-Saxon reign, which had lasted for centuries, was over. The old ways and traditions were swept away in the tide of Norman conquest. A new era, the Norman era, was dawning. The Normans began to establish their rule, bringing with them new customs and laws. England, once a land of relative isolation, was now firmly integrated into the political and cultural landscape of continental Europe. The influence of the Normans would be felt for generations to come. William the Bastard, now on the cusp of fulfilling his ambition, prepared to claim his prize and begin the arduous task of reshaping a kingdom. His coronation would mark the beginning of a new dynasty and a transformed England. The victory at Hastings was not the end of William's campaign, merely the beginning. He embarked on a ruthless campaign of conquest, marching his army across England, crushing pockets of resistance, and securing his hold on his newly won prize. His coronation, held on Christmas Day, 1066 at Westminster Abbey, was a tense affair. As the ceremony commenced, nervous Norman guards, fearing an uprising, set fire to buildings outside the abbey. Chaos erupted, but William, unfazed, continued with the coronation. William, now crowned William the Conqueror, moved swiftly to consolidate his power. He rewarded his loyal Norman followers with lands confiscated from the defeated English nobility. He built stone castles, imposing symbols of Norman dominance, strategically placed across the countryside to solidify his control. One of the most significant changes William brought to England was the feudal system. This hierarchical system of landholding and obligation, already established in Normandy, was imposed on the English landscape. At its head was the king, the ultimate landowner. He granted land, known as fiefs, to his loyal followers in return for their loyalty and military service. This system had a profound impact on English society. It created a new ruling class, predominantly Norman, who owed their allegiance to the king. It also led to the establishment of a new social order, with the peasantry tied to the land, their lives now governed by the dictates of their Norman overlords. The Norman conquest brought with it a wave of change that touched every aspect of English life. The Norman language, a dialect of French, became the language of the court and the elite. Norman architecture, with its emphasis on grandeur and military strength, transformed the English landscape. In 1085, William ordered a comprehensive survey of his new kingdom. Known as the Domesday Book, it was a monumental undertaking, a meticulous inventory of land holdings, resources, and population. It was a testament to William's insatiable desire for control and his administrative genius. The Domesday Book was more than just a census. It was a tool of power. It allowed William to assess the wealth of his kingdom, levy taxes more effectively, and solidify his claim to the land. It provided a detailed snapshot of English life just 2 decades after the conquest, a valuable resource for historians. The Domesday Book, with its meticulous records of land ownership, agricultural production, even the number of pigs and sheep, remains a remarkable historical document. It stands as a testament to William's transformation of England, a symbol of the new order he imposed. It also inadvertently preserves a record of the world that existed before the conquest. The Norman conquest of 1066 was a watershed moment in English history, a pivotal event that forever altered the course of the nation. It marked the end of the Anglo-Saxon era and the beginning of a new chapter, one shaped by Norman rule, bringing profound changes to the social and political landscape. The impact of William the Conqueror's victory at Hastings reverberated through the centuries, leaving an enduring legacy on the English language, law, culture, and national identity. His reign established new governance structures and reshaped the aristocracy. The fusion of Anglo-Saxon and Norman traditions created a unique English culture, a vibrant tapestry woven from diverse threads, blending customs, art, and societal norms. The English language itself bears the indelible mark of the conquest, with its rich vocabulary drawing heavily from both Old English and Norman French, enriching the lexicon we use today. The centralized feudal system introduced by William the Conqueror laid the foundation for the development of a strong monarchy and a centralized state, influencing the governance and societal structure for generations. The legacy of 1066 can still be seen today in the institutions and traditions of modern Britain, from the legal system to the ceremonial practices of the monarchy. The events of 1066, though distant in time, continue to resonate, reminding us that the past is never truly past, but rather a foundation upon which the present is built. The echoes of history shape our identity and future.